o seu chefe, o Martin Barron, diretor de redação do Washington Post, diz que você inventou o método Fahrenthold. Então, eu queria um pouco mostrar o que foi. Agora, ninguém me falou qual era o botão para apertar aqui nesse negócio. Aqui. Então, bom, esse é o Twitter do David, que ele tem 30 mil tweets desde 2009, e aí é onde ele fez o trabalho que foi todo premiado, com a apuração dele foi feita toda aí. A gente pode passar o próximo, porque eu não sei onde. E isso foi o que chamou a atenção. Ele pegou as cerca de quase 500 entidades que teriam doado dinheiro para a Trump Foundation, e foi atrás de cada uma para ver se o Trump tinha repassado esse dinheiro para algumas outras entidades, e descobriu que isso nunca aconteceu. Então, isso chamou muito a atenção. Eu queria saber, esse caderninho era assim mesmo que você usava, ou você fez isso só para, tipo, bombar no Twitter?
I did. I mean, I also used, this is for the young journalists in the audience, you should not make the notebook your only source, because someone could spill coffee on it and you could ruin everything. So I also had a computer spreadsheet. But look, I was trying to show people, Trump wouldn't tell me the answers that I wanted. I wanted to know if Donald Trump had been honest about the promises he'd been making. He'd been saying his whole life, I'm going to give money to this charity or that charity. I'm going to give all this money to charity. The question was, did he do it? So I'm looking for charities that Donald Trump, I thought if Donald Trump was going to give anybody his own money, these would be the charities to get it, because they're charities that rented out rooms at his hotels, they're charities he'd praised on Twitter. They're the sort of, because Trump won't help me find his proof of his donations, I'm going to try to prove him right. I'm going to try to find evidence that he did what he said he did. And if I can't, then I'm going to show you how hard I'm trying. And so every charity that I called, I would write it down, and I'd take a picture of the notebook. And that was because, you can get a lot more information into a picture than you can into 140 characters on a tweet, but also because nothing in your Twitter feed looks like this. This is the only, I want to give you, the reader, a sense that I'm working for you, I'm trying to find out these things, and if I give you a way of, when you scroll through your Twitter feed, there's a bunch of other crap, and you see, I'm the only guy who's posting pictures of his notebook. So whenever you see the notebook, you say, oh yeah, it's the notebook guy, I know what he's after. I know what he wants, and you can sort of pick up the thread, you can follow the narrative of what I'm trying to do. So this was really my notebook, but it was a prop as much as it was really a research tool.
E a pergunta que acho que todo jornalista faz para você, a primeira, você não teve medo de ser furado colocando toda a sua apuração, porque isso hoje é um trauma ainda, um mito, né? Da gente não pode tweetar, a gente não pode dizer nada, porque senão o outro vai atrás.
Possivelmente, se você trabalhasse num jornal brasileiro, a primeira coisa que você ia conseguir com isso ia ser uma bronca do seu chefe. Porque tem uma certa paranoia.
Well, so I was worried about that, but I started two things. One, I didn't really have any choice. You know, I had tried all the methods that I knew of as a sort of traditional reporter to do this on my own. You know, Trump says he's given millions to charity. He doesn't say to which charity. I can't call every charity in America. There's thousands of them, millions of them. So there's no other way for me to try to find this money than to sort of show everybody what I'm doing and invite the public to say, hey, I know a charity Donald Trump gave money to. Here's a tip. I can't do it without their help. I've exhausted all the ways of doing it privately. That's one thing. I just couldn't do it otherwise. Second, I wanted other reporters to chase this story because there were so many other things happening in that campaign, and I thought what I was doing was important, and I would have liked to have a feeding frenzy of other reporters who might find things that I couldn't find, who might push the story forward. And in general, other people didn't. There was a couple, the Huffington Post did a couple of things, the BuzzFeed did a couple of things that were sort of on the same topic, but nobody really competed with me, which was too bad, because I would have really liked this to be not just one guy in the wilderness doing this one story. I would like it to have been a bunch of reporters. I think we would have learned a lot more and gotten a lot more attention if it had been more than just me.
Mas aí você ia ter que dividir o seu Pulitzer, ia ser péssimo, né?
I definitely did not think when I started writing on a notebook that I was going to win the Pulitzer Prize. In fact, the treatment that I got from other people at the paper when I was like, hey, I'm going to take pictures of this notebook and put it online, was like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Well, you know, the Post has a social media expert who was very skeptical of my plan to post pictures of a piece of paper online. So I definitely did not think that's where it was headed when it started. But the thing I liked about it was so much of writing about Trump is he's so slippery. he changes his version of the truth from day to day. He's often not honest about things even that he has direct knowledge of. He wants to make it so that the only person you can, he in his mind, the only person who really knows what Donald Trump did or what Donald Trump's worth or what he's going to do is Donald Trump himself. He wants to make himself basically the arbiter of all facts about himself. And this was tedious, and it was painstaking, and it was kind of a pain to learn how these documents worked. But the great thing was they were documents, and you didn't have to ask Donald Trump what he did, and you didn't have to. You weren't stopped when Donald Trump wouldn't tell you. You could look at these documents and say, okay, now I have an independent record of what Donald Trump did, and I can use that as a roadmap to gather more data. I mean, the whole attraction for this to me was that I could get concrete data about a guy who sort of tried to reject the idea that there could ever be concrete data, there were only his words.
E uma curiosidade, o próprio Trump acompanha os teus tweets? Ele chegou a te bloquear no Twitter, não? Ele bloqueia muita gente.
Mandar emoji daqueles feios.
He does block a lot of people. No, he has not blocked me. He has never tweeted about me. And he's never used my name, at least. The funny thing is, so my name is hard to spell, as you can see. And there's
Too hard for him.
There's a congressman from Texas who loves Trump, whose name is one letter off from mine. He is missing the first H. And my prayer has always been that if Trump does ever attack me on Twitter, he'll attack that guy by mistake. I have to say, I did not get that much hate mail. I didn't have that many trolls. I mean, there were some. One case, we had a death threat. A guy called the newsroom that said he wanted to kill me, and that was a lot of security measures the Post put in after that. I don't think he was a very serious threat. In general, I didn't get that kind of feedback.
Access Hollywood Tape é uma coisa também que a gente vai falar, que logo depois que ele estava, enfim, quando ele estava publicando as matérias baseadas na falsa filantropia, ele recebeu e completa hoje 1 ano deste vídeo maravilhoso que vocês, não sei se todos viram. O Trump ia para uma entrevista, era 2005?
2005.
Você pode explicar para a gente como que foi a história e a gente depois faz o vídeo?
Well, this was not something that we knew existed. We had heard rumors, and we still hear rumors about tapes from the filming of The Apprentice, in which Trump would say horrible things about ethnic groups or about women, but we'd never heard of the Access Hollywood tape. We didn't know that it existed until we got this tape given to us by an anonymous source on a year ago yesterday. And it was shocking. I mean, it's hard to be shocked by Donald Trump, especially somebody who we'd heard, interviews with him from his past before he ran for president in which he would speak very demeaningly about women, or he would rate women's bodies, things like that. This video was different. This was him this was him in the context, it was him and one other person on a bus. They were going to be on a TV show in the U.S. Trump was going to be on a soap opera, as a guest star in a soap opera. And so this TV show was doing a segment about Trump being on the soap opera. And so they'd come along with him. And this is Trump and the interviewer sort of hanging out before the shooting begins, but they're wearing their microphones, so they're being taped. What Trump says in this context is it was shocking because it was beyond what we'd heard from him before. He'd raised the bar pretty high for shocking, and then this was above it. But for 2 reasons. One, Trump is describing what he does to women. He's not saying, oh, isn't she beautiful, isn't she a 10? He's saying, this is what I do to women. When I see them, I grab them, I try to kiss them. It doesn't, I just force myself on them. And so he's describing his own behavior, not his opinions, but his behavior. And he says this thing that there's a line in there that struck me then, and it strikes me today. Trump says, when you're a star, they let you do it.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, play it. Go ahead.
Como é que aqui?
Maybe it's a different one.
Better not be close. No, it's her.
Yeah, that's it, with the gold. I gotta use some Tic Tacs just in case I start kissing her. I'm automatically attracted to beautiful. I just start kissing them. It's like a magnet. You just kiss. I don't even wait. And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Whatever you want.
Grab them by the pussy. You can do anything.
Those legs, all I can see is the legs.
No, it looks good.
David, eu queria te pedir para contar para o público, que talvez não tenha acompanhado todas as suas matérias, a história de um caso específico em que o Twitter te ajudou a contar uma boa história, que que é aquela história do quadro que o Trump compra, ele
gente
arremata
tem
no
aqui o
leilão,
quadro.
a gente tem aqui, né? Com dinheiro da própria fundação, né, que era para ser uma entidade de caridade, para fazer coisas não beneficentes. E como é que você descobriu onde estava esse quadro com a ajuda dos seus seguidores?
This was amazing. So Donald Trump had a charity called the Donald J. Trump Foundation. The money in it was not his. He got other people to donate to his charity. And he would use the money in his charity for things that you're not supposed to use charitable money for. Okay, so if I had a David A. Fahrenthold Foundation, that's a charity, and you can't use the money in your foundation to buy things for yourself. I couldn't use it to buy myself a car. I couldn't use it to decorate my house. And so Donald Trump had bought this portrait of himself. That's it in the middle. I used to call it a $10,000 portrait, but it's a portrait for which he paid $10,000. I'm not sure it was really worth $10,000 to anyone but Donald Trump.
E não é do Romero Brito.
No, it's definitely not. No. So it's an Argentine artist, actually. So Trump buys this, and that's great. He buys it at a charity auction. That's great. If you buy a portrait of yourself at a charity auction, money goes to charity. But he should have used his own money. Instead, he used the money out of his charity. Okay, so now if the charity, the Donald J. Trump Foundation, buys this portrait, the charity owns it, and it must be used for charitable purposes. So once I learned this story, that Trump had bought this portrait with money from his charity, I needed to know, where is the portrait? Okay, is it hanging on the wall of a hospital? Is it in a convent someplace? What charitable purpose is it serving? Or is it hanging on the wall of his house or of his hotel, which would be against the law? So I got the artist to give me a picture of this portrait, but I didn't know where it was. And I was thinking, okay, well, how would I find it? How would I go look for it? And the old-fashioned way would have been to hire a bunch of freelancers, a bunch of other reporters, to go to the Trump hotels and Trump golf clubs that are open to the public, which is only like 5 or 6 out of the 13 or 15 golf clubs and hotels that he owns, to go to those and kind of snoop around and see if we could find it. But that would have taken a lot of time, and there was no guarantee we would find it. What if it turned out that he'd put it in his house, or what if he put it someplace where the public couldn't go? So I thought, well, I'll try Twitter. I'll see if people can offer suggestions. And what I learned was, we think of ourselves as sort of trained journalists. Like, I'm a great digger of things. I know how to find stuff that other people can't find. But it turns out that my ability to find things is really limited by my own experience. Things that I've done, resources I've used. And there's so many other things out there that I don't know about. So I asked the public for help to find this portrait. And there's a woman in Atlanta, a reader of mine, somebody I've never met. And she looks at this, and she decides, well, first of all, it's so ugly that Trump wouldn't put it in his house. It can't be in his house. He doesn't want to look at it. So she thinks it must be at one of his businesses. And so then she goes to tripadvisor.com, I never thought of. So Trump has a resort outside Miami in Doral. So if you go to the TripAdvisor page for Doral, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of photos of the most ridiculous things. People like, the bathroom, the hotel buffet, the hallways. Why people take pictures of these things and post them online, I don't know. But one of the pictures, so she's searching. I have no idea this is going on. She's searching, and 300 photos in, she finds a picture of a guy standing next to this portrait that I'm looking at. The portrait is now hanging on the wall of the sports bar at the resort, and there's a picture of a guy standing next to it. So wonderful. Now we know, so the photo was dated February of 2016. This was September of 2016. So we now know where the photo was. We don't know where it is now. And so I was thinking, this happened late at night, and I was thinking, okay, well, tomorrow morning I'll hire a freelancer in Miami and send him out, and he can check and see if it's still there. But I tweeted about it that night, and there's a guy at Univision, Natalie's network, Enrique Acevedo, who is he is the anchor from 11:30 p.m. to midnight, the newscast at that hour. And he sees my tweet, and he recognizes that Doral is like 4 blocks away from the Univision headquarters. So he makes a reservation for that night. And he uses reward points. He doesn't use his money, because he doesn't want to give Trump any money. So he goes over there, checks in at like 12:30 at night. This is like a Wednesday or something. It's not a weekend. the hotel was sort of shutting down for the night, and he convinces the cleaning crew to let him into the sports bar, which they're cleaning because it's kind of closed. And there is the portrait hanging on the wall. And so he takes a picture of himself next to the portrait. So we went from 10 o'clock in the morning, having no idea where this was, no idea if it even still existed, to 12:30 that night. Here's a trained journalist standing next to it, having found it on the wall, breaking the law. That was just an amazing experience. I had no idea that sort of thing was possible until it happened.
Hoje a gente está vendo que, além do investimento em tecnologia e da grana que entrou, naturalmente, o jornal também está se beneficiando desse momento político nos Estados Unidos. E isso foi um tema que tem perpassado aqui as mesas que a gente assistiu de outros jornalistas. Queria te perguntar o seguinte: como é que o Trump e essa conjuntura americana está ajudando o jornalismo de qualidade? Como é que o Trump ajudou o nosso negócio a voltar a ter essa relevância? E a audiência também.
Well, obviously Trump has created an audience for national political journalism that is much larger than it ever existed before. And that was true during the campaign. There was always a lot of attention on campaigns. It was true then. It's much more true now. Before, after a presidential campaign, a lot of people's interest in national politics would sort of fall off because they'd say, okay, well, the drama's over. Now it's going to be kind of more boring, slow-moving things. And that has not been the case with Trump. I mean, it's been kind of like a house on fire since he started. And so people are either really excited or they're really afraid, or there's a sense that you can't turn away from national news in the era of Trump. And that has been great for our bottom line. It's been great for our readership. So as it has been for a lot of, for everybody from CNN to the New Yorker to everybody else. So that's been really beneficial. I mean, I think what we have to think of is how do we cover Trump, but also, when Trump is gone, however, if he serves 2 terms and retires, or if he gets defeated or is impeached, or whatever causes him to leave the scene, what have we learned? And how will we be able to sort of apply the lessons of Trump to the next president in a way that people will keep people interested, keep people, that we're not just dependent on Donald Trump.
David, hoje você continua fazendo um trabalho parecido um pouco com a campanha, só que com uma diferença, que é o Trump presidente dos Estados Unidos, né? O homem mais poderoso do mundo, e que, ao mesmo tempo, também é o dono de negócios em todas as áreas, quer dizer, é dono de hotéis, de cassinos, de campos de golfe, inclusive no exterior. Hoje mesmo você publica uma matéria no Washington Post contando lá que ele está perdendo muito dinheiro nos seus campos de golfe na Escócia. Queria que você contasse um pouco para a gente como você está fazendo esse trabalho hoje, já que esse é o foco atual das suas reportagens no Post, e de que forma você está usando instrumentos como, por exemplo, a Lei de Acesso à Informação, que aqui, para a gente, no Brasil, é uma coisa nova, mas nos Estados Unidos tem uma longa tradição no jornalismo, para ter acesso a esses dados.
Well, this is the new beat, conflicts of interest. Trump owns a lot of hotels and golf courses, and he still owns them. He's not running them anymore, but he gets the money. If you stay at the Trump Hotel, your money goes to Trump. So that's obviously a huge question mark about whether he is being influenced by the success or failure of his businesses. But so I'm trying to figure out, are they succeeding? Are they failing? Who are his customers? Who's paying him money? What do they expect in return? Not something we've ever had to deal with and with a president before. So the coverage is sort of, the challenge is similar to last year when I was writing about Trump's charity, and that then their response to me was just not to tell me anything, not to answer my questions. The Trump people would just not respond, thinking that if they didn't respond, I couldn't write the story, because the only person who really knew what happened was Donald Trump, and if he didn't speak to me, then I couldn't write about it. It's the same way with the Trump organization. They won't talk to me at all. They'll talk to one of my colleagues sometimes, and they talk to the New York Times some. But even when they do talk, the Trump organization, what they say is everything is great, everything's going wonderfully, people are just lining up out the door to, they're not good narrators, they're not reliable sources about their own success or failure. So how do you find out really what's going on? And it's kind of like what I did with the charity last year, where you have to go to a million other little sources and look for places where somebody can tell you for sure what's happening with Donald Trump's business, but there's somebody who's not beholden to Donald Trump, there's somebody who's not employed by Donald Trump, so they'll tell you the truth. And so this has meant for me finding all kinds of different places where there's some data about Donald Trump's business that's in the public record that I can get. And it's very spread out. It's very different in every country. So the United Kingdom has a great source. They require companies to file records every year saying whether they made money, whether they lost money, how much money that their owner has loaned them. So those documents were revealed in the UK for these 2 golf courses Trump has in Scotland. And they're not doing well. They're doing very poorly. Their losses doubled. They were losing money in 2015. In 2016, their losses doubled, and their revenue went down. So that's an interesting barometer of how he's doing there. In some places, you talked about the Freedom of Information Act. In some cases, there's local governments, city governments, state governments, county governments, that because they have to issue permits to the Trump course or because they track their tax payments, they know a little bit about what's going on there. And so it's been, if you put up a Freedom of Information Act request, for instance, his club, Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, it makes a lot of its money off these big sort of charity balls, galas, parties. He can make as much as $275,000 in one night from a charity renting out his ballroom to have their fancy fundraiser party. And so the town of Palm Beach requires you to get a permit before you have a charity party to make sure that you're not stealing people's money, you're not defrauding them. And so once I learned that, okay, now I can put in a Freedom of Information Act request to the town of Palm Beach, and I'll get a list of all the charities that have rented Trump's ballroom out for parties. That's great because then you can chart it over time. Was he doing better before he ran for president, or is he doing better now? The answer is he's doing much worse now. So it's been a real search to find where those sources of information are. But again, just like last year, it's so satisfying to have built concrete, real data about Donald Trump, a guy who wants to keep all the information to himself.
E vocês ficaram muito chocados com a vulgaridade desses debates e da campanha em geral, a coisa do Little Marco, né, da mãozinha pequena, que fazia alusão, enfim, e o Trump xingando, se dirigindo, xingando repórteres, ou pela raça, pela opinião, enfim, política, religiosa ou necessidades especiais. E isso foi uma coisa assim que foi muito chocante. Você acha que isso vai voltar para um ponto inicial de como se cobria a política, ou essa maneira, o que aconteceu agora, que, tipo assim, que nem briga de marido e mulher, uma vez você chama de feio, na outra é horroroso, você nunca vai chamar de feio de novo, daqui para frente, só vai mais para frente. Tem como voltar para uma situação de normalidade ali na cobertura?
I'm an optimist, by nature, and so I think that I think that whoever is president after Donald Trump, I don't see any other Donald Trumps on the horizon. I think whoever runs for president and wins, Republican or Democrat, will run on the promise to return things to normal. I think people are already getting sick of the Donald Trump show, and people will not want somebody who will make things more chaotic. It's possible Trump will win another term, certainly possible, but so maybe the Trump era will continue for a while, but unless you guys are familiar with Kanye West. He's thinking about running for president in 2020. If Kanye West becomes president, I could see this kind of circus continuing.
Fala para quem não sabe quem é o Kanye West. Pode explicar?
You guys must know Kanye West.
Não, mas não sei.
He's a musician, a very sort of provocative, and he has a high opinion of himself. I think he would be a lot like Donald Trump. I don't know if he would tell the truth more often, but he would certainly be like Donald Trump. He's not someone who's not used to being questioned the way that politicians often are, and Trump is not used to that. To me, the important thing for us as journalists, and other journalists up here have said it, is that we can't let ourselves be... Trump's game, so much of the time, is that he wants people to say, well, even if I don't like Donald Trump, even if I don't agree with him, he makes my enemies mad. He makes the liberals mad. He makes the press mad. And so by taking the bait and getting angry and sort of acting outraged about something that Donald Trump has said, I think we play into that, and we make it seem like we're his enemy. At one point last year, Trump had said he was going to give $1 million out of his own pocket to veterans. He had promised to give veterans charities $1 million. And so Trump's campaign manager, I've been looking to try to see if anybody had gotten that money, and I couldn't find that anybody had. Trump's campaign manager calls me and says, okay, I can tell you for sure, Donald Trump has now given away his $1 million, but I can't tell you who got it or in what amounts or when or anything else. It's all secret, but just trust me that Donald Trump has given this $1 million away. And you can't take that. You can't trust that. I mean, we wrote a story saying that the campaign manager had said that, but then I went looking for proof that it had actually happened. I was trying to find I was using Twitter to find any charity who would say, oh yeah, Donald Trump gave me $100, Donald Trump gave me $1,000. Anybody who'd gotten even a little bit of that money so that you could say, okay, well, this guy got a little bit of it, maybe it's true, maybe Trump really did give $1 million away. So I searched and searched and searched, and I couldn't find any evidence that anybody had gotten any of this money, zero. And it turned out that was because Trump had not actually given it away. It was a lie. After I spent a day searching on Twitter, sort of making a big deal out of the fact that I couldn't find the money, I was looking for it but couldn't find it, then Trump gave the money away. And he called me to tell me that, as this is last time I spoke to him. And I said, would you have given this money away if I hadn't been looking for it? If I hadn't made a big show of the fact that you hadn't given it away, would you ever have made this donation? And he was like, oh, you're a nasty guy. You should be so ashamed of yourself. Which is so, he doesn't know me. I'm not going to argue with him about whether I'm a nasty person or not. It's pointless. So I had a bunch of other factual questions I needed to ask him about money that other people had given him to give to veterans, and I couldn't account for that either. And so I would say, okay, well, what about this other $3 million that people gave you to give to veterans? And he would stop insulting me, and he would sort of reset and then answer that question factually, and then his answer would kind of devolve into insults. Oh, you should be ashamed of yourself. You're so nasty. It was like when you're 7 arguing with your sister, And I remember that nothing made my sister more angry than not arguing with her, not buying into the sort of emotions of the argument. And so Trump and I did that. I would just not argue with him, and he would sort of reset himself and answer my questions and then try to argue again. He thrives on argument. He thrives on people thinking that he's outrageous and they have to put him in his place. And as journalists, I just think that's counterproductive. Deal with the facts. And don't try to convince people that Trump is outrageous, because the people that are convinced, nobody's going to change their mind on that either way.
Voltando para a temática da rede social, tem uma questão que é muito presente nas nossas redações hoje, que é como que um jornalista deve se comportar, o que ele pode ou não dizer. Queria que você contasse um pouco para a gente quais são as regras lá e o que você pessoalmente acha que um jornalista não deve fazer quando ele está no Twitter, no Facebook, durante uma eleição, durante um debate, ou assistindo alguma coisa que, de alguma forma, tenha conexão com aquilo em que ele trabalha.
There is a formal policy of the Washington Post. I know because I sit across from the guy who breaks it all the time. So whenever he breaks it, we have to get another note saying that he broke it again. I have tried to be sort of exaggeratedly open and friendly and welcoming of everybody's input. I think that to me that's the way I've chosen to do it. Obviously, my work depends on people feeling that they can trust me. And when people insult me, mostly I just ignore it. But if there's a time when I feel like I can use that as a way to show people how open I am to everybody, I can. There was one example last year where on Twitter where a guy who was he was like a Trump campaign staffer, a big Trump backer, somebody who was well known, started coming after me on Twitter saying, well, you're looking for Donald Trump's charitable giving, and I know a charity that Donald Trump gave money to, but I'm not going to tell you because if I told you, you would just screw it up or you would ignore it or whatever. Again, he wants a fight. He wants to have a fight. And so I was like, this is wonderful. What a great opportunity. I've been looking for 6 months to find Donald Trump's charitable giving. Here's somebody who knows it. This is great. Tell us more. And he'd be like, you're terrible. You're like, he's vulgar. He wants a fight. And so finally, I'm upbeat. I'm very optimistic and eager. And so finally we get to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm going to start guessing letters. Is there an M in your charity? Is there an R in your charity? And so eventually he coughed up the name, and it turned out to be a charity that I had called 3 months earlier. Trump had never given them any money, so it was a dead end that way. But again, I was like, thank you so much for this. The Trump campaign has given me so little, and you have been so kind as to give me a lead. It didn't pan out, but I just want to say thank you again. And the guy was so mad that we couldn't have a fight that he sent me a private message. He was like, you're a horrible person. I hate you. So I've tried to be as open to that as I can. Both because I think it's easier than trying to remember who you're having a fight with, but also I think it invites people to tell you things they wouldn't otherwise tell you, and it invites people's trust.
A declaração de imposto de renda do Trump que ele nunca entregou, isso é uma coisa que você gostaria de cobrir? Já tentou investigar, e o que foi, onde você teve que parar? Qual a dificuldade?
Tax returns, yes, we definitely want them, would like to see them. If any of you have them, I would like to see you afterward.
Twitter?
But a tax return, and Trump kept promising he was going to give them. Every presidential candidate going back to the 70s had released them. So in the beginning, I think there was an expectation that he actually would release them, and he didn't. And then to get a tax return without the person's permission is it's effectively illegal. There obviously are people at the IRS, the Tax Revenue Service in the U.S., who have seen copies of it. It exists someplace. Trump's lawyers and accountants have seen it. But it would be illegal for any of them to disclose it. And I thought at some point somebody would be willing to take the risk to break the law and release it, but nobody did. The only example came from the New York Times. They got a copy of Trump's tax return from 1995, which showed that he had taken an enormous loss, like a $39 billion loss or something that year, 19 billion. Anyway, it was a loss that was so big that he could have avoided paying taxes for the next 10 years. That was really fascinating. We learned a lot from that one tax return.
But it's during the campaign.
That was during the campaign. Since he's become president, I think Robert Mueller at the Special Counsel's Office has them, but nobody in the media has seen them.
Ontem, o Ryan Lisa observou que os meses de mandato do Trump parecem 7 anos. Você acha que o tipo de cobertura que é feita agora, muito detalhada em suas críticas e escrutínios das ações do presidente, é sustentável pelos próximos 3 anos de mandato?
I think there is a danger of that, but it is already changing. If you think about the beginning of the Trump campaign, the beginning of the Trump administration after he took over, every day there was some crazy new thing that was going on. And Trump had the power then to tweet about something, and we would all stop what we were doing and cover it, no matter what. And because there was an expectation that the president tweeted about something, he was going to do something about it. And then we sort of learned gradually that Trump mostly just uses Twitter to yell at the television and doesn't actually do very much. Like, the fact that he tweeted about it doesn't mean that he's going to do it. And so I think there has already been a diminishing, for 2 reasons, there's been kind of a diminishing frenzy. It hasn't been quite as busy as it was. One is that Trump's tweets get less attention because we recognize sometimes there's not any meaning behind them. And the second thing is that Trump has been so unwilling to use the actual levers of power. He's given so much of his power back to Congress. You know, he's asked Congress to sort out health care. He's going to ask Congress to sort out the Iran deal. He's put so much power in the hands of Congress, and Congress naturally moves slower. So we've been through 3 or 4 iterations of the health care plan in Congress, which have been, by congressional standards, very fast, but they still move slower than the Trump news cycle. I think you've actually seen him, and this is not what I'm going to tell you is not a great trend. I think it's a scary trend. Trump recognizes that he has lost the ability to command the news cycle with a tweet that he once had. You know, we don't jump when he tweets about anything at all. That's, I think, responsible for a lot of the tweets about North Korea. Like, he's recognizing that like, people will cover a tweet about nuclear war.
Rocket Man.
You can't ignore that. And so he's ratcheting up the pressure because he's not able to get that kind of attention from less scary tweets. We may reach a point where Trump will tweet about nuclear war and people won't pay attention because they would have heard about it before. But he's reacting to the loss of his control by trying to be even more outrageous.